Hello and welcome to News at 10 on Rajya Sabha television. My name is Aishwarya Kapoor. Well, US and India have signed military logistics agreement. They can now use each other's land, air and naval bases. Well, that is the big story that we're tracking this morning. We'll get you all the details on that and much more in the next half an hour in this news bulletin. Let us begin with the headlines. India and US signed bilateral logistics exchange memorandum of agreement. Militaries on both sides will be able to use assets for repair and replenishment. Agreement signed during Defence Minister's ongoing US visit. US Secretary of State John Kerry in India to co-chair second Indo-US strategic and commercial dialogue along with External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj. Kerry scheduled to meet the Prime Minister on Wednesday. Committee set up to find alternatives for pellet guns submits report to Home Secretary. Blanket ban unlikely. Pellet guns to be used in rarest of rare cases. Bihar continues to reel under floods. 3 more deaths take toll up to 159. Situation improving in Uttar Pradesh. And the suspended Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff defends her record, says her conscience is absolutely clean and she hasn't committed any crime. Senate vote likely later this week to seal her fate. The top story this morning, India and the US have signed the bilateral logistics exchange memorandum of agreement or LEMUA. Well, this agreement now makes India and the US logistical allies and enables the militaries on each side to use each other's assets and bases for repair and replenishment of supplies. Now, LEMUA facilitates will be provided on a reimbursable basis and it provides a framework to govern them. The agreement was signed after a meeting between Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar and US Defence Minister Ashton Carter in Washington yesterday. Well, during their meeting, Parrikar and Carter discussed the wealth of progress in bilateral cooperation and deepening strategic partnership between the US and India. The US has agreed to elevate defence trade and technology sharing with India to a level commensurate with its closest allies and partners. But during his stay in the US, Parrikar will visit Boeing's manufacturing facility at Philadelphia. He would also interact with American defense industry representatives at an event organized by the US-India Business Council. Earlier today, Parrikar was accorded an enhanced honor cordon by Carter after he arrived at the Pentagon. Parrikar is on a 3-day visit to the United States.
It's basically logistic support to each other's fleet, like supply of fuel, supply of many other things which are required for joint operations, humanitarian assistance and many other relief operations. So it's basically will ensure that the both navies can be supportive of each other in the joint operations we do, exercises we do. And there is no provision for any base or any sort of activities to set up a base in India.
With respect to the Major Defense Partnership Agreement, that is a very substantial change. It's an enormous change from 50 years of history and a very substantial advance over just a few months ago. And here's the gist of it. It will allow the United States and India to cooperate, which, speaking from the U.S. point of view, in a way that we do only with our closest and most long-standing allies.
Meanwhile, US Secretary of State John Kerry is in India to co-chair the second Indo-US strategic and commercial dialogue to be held in the national capital today. The strategic and commercial dialogue is the main bilateral forum for advancing shared security and economic priorities of India and the US. Well, talks will cover a review of the implementations of various initiatives taken in the first summit that was held in Washington, D.C. last year, and other economic matters, as well as terrorism emanating from Pakistan. The dialogue will be co-chaired by External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj and Commerce and Industry Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, along with US Secretary of Commerce Penny Pritzker. John Kerry is also scheduled to meet Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Wednesday. Earlier on Monday, Kerry visited Bangladesh and discussed security cooperation after a series of killings by Islamist militants, as well as economic developments and human rights with Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. He said there is evidence to show that Islamic State is in contact with militants in Bangladesh. Meanwhile, India and the US will also review the progress made on boosting renewable energy, defense ties and smart city projects at the CEO Forum today. Well, the dialogue was elevated to a strategic and commercial dialogue during US President Barack Obama's India visit last year. Ahead of the IndiaUS CEO Forum meeting today, Commerce Minister Nirmala Sitharaman on Monday held wide-ranging discussions with the industry leaders on issues such as energy and manufacturing, with a view to boost economic ties with America. Tata Group Chairman Cyrus Mistry and Dave Coate, CEO of Honeywell, will co-chair the India-US CEO Forum meeting. On to some other news now, and an Australian court has granted a temporary injunction against a further publication of leaked Scorpion submarine data by the Australian newspaper. The court granted the injunction on an application moved by French defence firm DCNS that has been rocked by the document leak scandal. Well, the newspaper had earlier said that it will publish the documents regarding the weapon system of the submarine on Monday, but had not done so. The firm's lawyer had told the newspaper that the publication of this highly valuable document causes a direct harm to DCNS and its customer in terms of a spread of sensitive and restricted information, image and reputation. Over 22,000 pages of top-secret data on the capabilities of 6 highly advanced submarines being built for the Indian Navy in Mumbai in collaboration with the French company have been leaked. The French public prosecutor has opened a preliminary investigation into the data leak, with the DCNS filing a complaint of breach of trust. Now, Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar said that the leak is not a cause of big worry. The Navy chief also called it as very serious, but not a matter of much worry.
Any leak of information is viewed very seriously. We have viewed the leak of the Scorpion data very seriously, and we have asked DCNS to launch an urgent investigation into this. We ourselves have set up a high-level committee to investigate into this. Based on the report of the committee, we will see what mitigation measures need to be taken. ये ज़्यादा चिंता वाली बात नहीं है. अब जो कमिटी बैठी है वो एनालाइज कर रही है, उसमें देखा जाएगा कि क्या डेटा कॉम्प्रोमाइज है और क्या मिटिगेशन मेजर हमें करने पड़ेंगे.
News from Jammu and Kashmir. Well, a government committee set up to find alternatives to pellet guns in the Kashmir Valley has suggested the use of chili-filled grenades and stun-lac shells to control the mobs there. Now, pellet guns are, however, unlikely to be completely banned. They will be fired in the rarest of rare cases. Now, the 7-member expert committee headed by Joint Secretary in the Home Ministry, TVSN Prasad, submitted its report to the Home Secretary on Monday. The panel was constituted after scores of protesters were blinded by the use of pellet guns in the valley. Home Minister Rajnath Singh, during his recent visit to Kashmir, had assured that an alternative to pellet guns will be found. The report was prepared after extensive consultations with security forces and examining the ground realities in the Kashmir Valley. The expert committee also recommended standard operating procedures for the deployment of this new assortment of non-lethal weapons. Meanwhile, after 51 days, Kashmir is slowly limping back to normalcy on Monday with the lifting of curfew in most parts of the valley. Now, an all-party delegation led by Home Minister Rajnath Singh is expected to visit the state next month to interact with various sections of people to find a long-term solution to the problem.
After 51 consecutive days of restrictions, a sight Kashmiris were waiting for. Life in the valley limped back to normal as curfew was lifted in most parts, barring 3 police station areas. As traffic returned to the roads, people too stepped out of their homes, albeit tentatively. On Sunday, in his radio program Man Ki Baat, Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke about unity and love being the basic mantras for addressing the Kashmir problem. This came a day after he met Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister Mehbooba Mufti to discuss the issue.
कश्मीर की स्थिति के संबंध में देश के सभी राजनीतिक दलों ने मिलकर के एक स्वर से कश्मीर की बात रखी, दुनिया को भी संदेश दिया, अलगाववादी तत्वों को भी संदेश दिया। जो लोग इन छोटे छोटे बालकों को आगे करके कश्मीर में अशांति पैदा करने का प्रयास कर रहे हैं, कभी न कभी उनको इन निर्दोष बालकों को भी जवाब देना पड़ेगा।
जिस चीज को मोदी जी ने शुरू किया लाहौर जाके, उसके बाद राजनाथ सिंह जी भी गए, तो पाकिस्तान को देर सवेर इस चीज की समझ आ जाएगी, इस चीज को रियलाइज करेंगे। जंगो जदल, एक दूसरे को बुरा भला कहना, उससे हमारे मसले हल नहीं होंगे।
An all-party delegation led by Home Minister Rajnath Singh is likely to visit Jammu and Kashmir on the 4th of September and is expected to interact with a cross-section of people. However, not all political parties support the steps taken by the BJP-PDP alliance.
पिछले 1.5 महीने से, बल्कि 1.5 महीने से भी ज्यादा से सब बिजनेस, तजारत सब ठप हैं, एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूशंस ठप हैं, जिसकी वजह से बहुत नुकसान उत्तर प्रदेश को हुआ, जम्मू कश्मीर को हुआ। मुझे पूरी उम्मीद है कि अब उसको कंपनसेट करने के लिए राज्य सरकार और केंद्रीय सरकार मिलकर कोई प्रयास करें।
कश्मीरियत, इंसानियत और जमहूरियत, वहाँ पे तीनों ही खतरे में। अटल जी के बताए रास्ते पर चलना है तो इन तीनों चीज़ों को वापस ला करके वैली में शांति स्थापित होनी चाहिए। जिन्होंने जुल्म जातियाँ की हैं उनको कटघरे में खड़ा करना चाहिए, चाहे वो पत्थर फिकवाने वाले हों या निहत्तों पर गोली चलाने वाले।
Although curfew has been lifted from most parts of the valley, police and security forces remain on high alert. Assembly of 10 or more people continues to be prohibited. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Just coming in from Jharkhand, where protests against land acquisition in Ramagarh in Jharkhand turned violent on Monday. Now, police fired at protesters, resulting in 2 deaths and several injuries. Fights also broke out between officials and villagers, leaving 26 policemen injured. Now, the protests have been against Indian Power Limited. They have been taken up the demands made by the displaced people. Chief Minister Raghubar Das has ordered a probe into the incident, and a Section 144 is in force, and the police is probing if the deaths have been due to gunfire.
हम लोग वहाँ पर बैठ के अनिश्चितकालीन धरना में बैठने के लिए, जैसे बैठने के लिए गए, बस लाठी चार्ज करते तो कोई बात रहता, सीधा गोली फायरिंग, डायरेक्ट गोली चलाए।
कितने लोगों की मौत हुई है यहाँ?
11 लोगों को गोली लगा,
कितने की मौत?
4 की मौत हुई।
CLR पे उन पर जानलेवा हमला किया, जो CEO हैं उनकी गाड़ी को जला दिया, उन पर भी जानलेवा हमला किया। और फायरिंग जो है लाइसेंसी हथियार से, वहाँ एक राजू जायसवाल नामक व्यक्ति जो कि इनको लीड कर रहा था, उसने अपने लाइसेंसी हथियार से फायर किया।
And in News at 10, we'll take a very short break. Up next, we have all the international and sports news. Stay with us.
The art of painting comes to us from the prehistoric period. Paintings are also a valuable source of information about their age. Like this depiction of the wedding procession of Dara Shikoh. The eldest son of Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan had a Mughal wedding with distinctive Indian elements. Like the veil he wears to the pomp and show of the Bharat in Hindu weddings.
Welcome back after the break. Well, the national capital is facing the threat of chikungunya and dengue outbreak. The number of chikungunya cases in Delhi have shot up to 423 now. The civic authorities had reported just 20 cases till last week. Now, Safdarjung Hospital has reported nearly 250 cases since till 29th of August at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences laboratories, which get blood samples from Delhi and other parts of the country. 362 samples have tested positive for chikungunya during July to 20th of August. Now, chikungunya is a viral illness and its symptoms are similar to those of dengue, which includes a high-grade fever, severe joint pains, muscle pains and headache and joint swelling. Now, 487 cases of dengue have also so far been reported in the national capital this season, with 368 of them being recorded in the month of August itself. An 18-year-old boy died of dengue on Monday at the Apollo Hospital, taking the number of fatalities from the disease to 5. The civic bodies, however, have acknowledged only 2 of the deaths so far. This year, dengue cases were reported rather early. Doctors have advised people to keep themselves adequately hydrated and not resort to self-medication, and also to go for blood tests before rushing to getting admitted in the hospital. And a new draft law to punish celebrities for endorsing misleading advertisements will be taken up at a meeting of a group of ministers headed by Finance Minister Arun Jaitley today. Under the new draft law, celebrities can be jailed for up to 5 years and face a fine of 50 lakh rupees. The centre had in the month of August last year introduced the Consumer Protection Bill 2015 in Lok Sabha to repeal the 30-year-old Consumer Protection Act. Now, Parliamentary Standing Committee submitted its recommendations in April. After studying the panel's report, the Consumer Affairs Ministry has accepted some of the key recommendations, such as the provisions for fixing liability on celebrities and also stringent punishment for adulteration, among others. Now, almost all the ministries are in agreement on the new proposed provisions. Well, the West Bengal Assembly on Monday passed a resolution to change the name of the state to Bengal in English, Hindi and Bangla. A government resolution under Rule 169 was passed amid a walkout by the Left Front, the Congress and the BJP. As the opposition parties did not support the resolution, it was passed through a voice vote. Now, the new names will require a constitutional amendment to effect the change. Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee called the occasion historic and one that will be remembered in golden letters. In Bengali, the state is currently referred to as Paschim Banga or Paschim Bangla.
কিন্তু মানুষ কিন্তু বাংলার নামটা অ্যাকসেপ্ট করে নিচ্ছে, তার কারণ কেউ কিন্তু বলে না আমি বঙ্গ থেকে এসেছি। কোথাও জিজ্ঞেস করলো লোকের যেটা মানে লোকের মুখে মুখে যে ভাষাটা সেটা হচ্ছে আমি বাংলা থেকে এসেছি, বেঙ্গল থেকে এসেছি। এটা কিন্তু সাধারণ মানুষ ইতিমধ্যেই ইউজ করছেন অনেক দিন ধরে এবং করেও। তাদের সেই ব্যাপারটাকে গুরুত্ব দিয়ে আমরা আজকে এটা করলাম। আজকে আমার সবচেয়ে খারাপ লাগছে যেটা বারবার বলা সত্ত্বেও কংগ্রেস, সিপিএম, বিজেপি এমনকি বাংলার নামকরণটা নিয়েও তারা বিরোধিতা করেছে। এটা যদি বিরোধিতা করার জন্যই বিরোধিতা হয় তাহলে এটা খুবই দুর্ভাগ্যজনক এবং দুঃখজনক।
See, the logic and rationale for effecting the change is completely faulty. And since this is a very, very important decision, opposition should have been taken on board. A consensus should have been arrived at. Historians, they should have been consulted. People at large should have been involved. That has not happened.
We were in favor of changing the name, one. But we could not agree with them, so it is a divided opinion finally. They could have made it anonymous. They were not intending to do it anonymous. We were raising 2 questions. One, it should be anonymous, so process should be made that way, all party consulting, historians and etc. And 2, the name should be one. In whatever language it may be, this title name cannot be 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. In Bengali one name, in English another name, in Hindi another name, in Urdu another name. No, it should be one.
ये हमारी पुरानी स्टैंड है कि हम पश्चिम बंगाल नाम बदलना नहीं चाहते हैं, क्योंकि देश का स्वतंत्रता संग्राम में जो लोगों ने बलिदान दिया है, लाखों लोग उजड़ गए, घर बार छोड़कर रिफ्यूजी बनकर आए हैं। हजारों माता बहनों की इज्जत लूटी गई है। अपने पुश्तैनी घर छोड़ के आना पड़ा लोगों को। डॉक्टर श्यामा प्रसाद की जो इसमें कंट्रीब्यूशन है, जिन्होंने इस पश्चिम बंगाल को बनाया है, उनको भुलाने की ये साजिश हो रही है, क्योंकि इस प्रकार कोई जरूरत नहीं कि ये नाम बदला जाए।
And now a look at the flood situation across several states in the country. Well, with 3 more deaths reported from Khagaria, the toll in Bihar floods increased to 159. The flood has been caused by a spate in rivers Ganga, Son, Punpun, Burhi, Gandak, Ghagra, Kosi and others, and has affected more than 37 lakh people of 12 districts in the state. The government is plying close to 3,000 boats for evacuation, and national and state disaster response forces have already been deployed in the affected areas. Meanwhile, in Uttar Pradesh, the situation has improved a bit with the lesser rainfall in the past few days. Waters in major rivers have started receding. The weather was dry over eastern parts, while light rains occurred at some western parts of the state. The rescue operations are going on in the affected areas. Meanwhile, the Allahabad High Court directed the district magistrates of all the flood-affected areas to provide details of the relief work undertaken in their respective areas of jurisdiction. On to some international news now. Well, about 6,500 migrants have been rescued off Libya in one of the biggest operations of its kind to date. The Italian Coast Guard said that around 40 coordinated rescue missions took place about 20 kilometers off the Libyan town of Sarbrata. The rescue operations involved vessels from Italy as well as EU's border agency and some NGOs as well. Video footage shows migrants cheering and some swimming to rescue vessels, while others carried babies aboard. The migrants had set off in overcrowded and unseaworthy vessels to reach waiting rescuers. While the number of people migrating between Turkey and Greece has fallen after the completion of an agreement between EU and Turkey, crossings between Libya and Italy remain at near record levels. Last year, more than 1 million migrants arrived in Europe, and this year, so far, close to 3 lakh of them have already entered Europe through various transit routes across Africa, Asia and the Middle East. Big story from Brazil, where suspended President Dilma Rousseff has defended her record during her impeachment trial in the Senate. Now, presenting her defense at a trial in the Senate in what may be her last public appearance as the president, Rousseff said that her conscience was absolutely clean and that she had not committed any crime. In her 40-minute statement, Rousseff proclaimed her innocence and struck a tone which oscillated between that of a defiant warrior and a victimized woman. Her opponents, however, used the question and answer session to assert their claim that Rousseff is undergoing a constitutionally approved trial overseen by the Supreme Court. Now, senators are cross-examining her. They are due to vote later this week on whether to remove her from office or whether to reinstate her. Now, if the Senate convicts Rousseff, her Vice President Michel Temer will be sworn in to serve the rest of her term through 2018. Rousseff is accused of illegally manipulating the budget to hide a growing deficit. Meanwhile, both the pro- and anti-Rousseff protests and clashes were reported from the streets of Sao Paulo as the impeachment trial went on in the Senate. Riot police had to launch a tear gas to disperse the protesters.
Sem crime de responsabilidade, qualquer processo de impeachment pela legislação brasileira, esse sim é claro, integral.
Porque nós não podemos nos calar diante desse descalabro. É um golpe de Estado, é uma ruptura da democracia, é uma ruptura institucional, é uma ruptura que não interessa ao povo brasileiro, ao Brasil, à América Latina.
Não é por causa que um presidente vai mal, tá? E o Brasil vai mal, que ela tem que sair, não. Eu não concordo com isso, entendeu? Ela teve voto, ela podia ter ficado até o final da eleição, daqui 2 anos, entendeu?
On to some sporting action. Well, wrestler Yogeshwar Dutt's bronze medal win in the 60-kilogram freestyle event at 2012 London Games is set to be upgraded to silver. Well, this after Russian silver medalist Besik Kudukov's blood sample tested positive for doping. Now, Kudukov, who died in a fatal car crash in Russia 2 years ago, remains bronze medalist from 2008 Beijing Olympics. Now, with the medal upgradation, Yogeshwar will become the second wrestler from India to win a silver medal at the London Games, along with Sushil Kumar, who finished second in the 66-kilogram freestyle wrestling category. The retest is now part of the standard Olympic practice, as samples are stored for up to 10 years to allow the use of advanced testing methods to weed out dope cheats. And now the latest from the US Open. Well, Spain's Rafael Nadal won his first Grand Slam match in more than 3 months, sailing through Denis Istomin of Uzbekistan 6-1, 6-4, 6-2 in the first round of the US Open. Now, Nadal had withdrawn, remember, from the French Open in May before the third round due to an injured wrist. Meanwhile, in other matches, the 2014 US Open runners-up Caroline Wozniacki defeated US player Taylor Townsend in a thrilling match which lasted over 2 hours. And the US Open, remember, kicked off on Monday with Serena Williams and defending champion Novak Djokovic is seated at the top. Italian Flava Planeta is the current champion in the women's singles event. She, however, will not be able to defend her title as she retired at the end of 2015 season. Well, that's all in this edition of news, but news and updates continue on Rajya Sabha TV. Thanks for watching.